All right. Hi, and welcome to the Football Outsiders live stream and podcast for Thursday, January 26th, 2023. I'm Aaron Schatz, editor in chief of footballoutsiders.com, joined as always by Mike Tanier and joined by Bryan Knowles once again, who is our NFC Championship expert. And we are going to be previewing the two conference championships on today's show. Don't forget that we love your comments and questions. If you're watching us live on Twitch or YouTube, bring on the comments and questions. We'd love to hear from you about these great games. But first, I want to get Mike's take on this morning's big NFL news, which is Nathaniel Hackett being hired as New York Jets offensive coordinator. As we said before the show, hope springs eternal during draft season, even for New York Jets fans. They now have to talk themselves into the guy who failed so terribly in Denver running their offense.
They're not talking themselves into Nathaniel Hackett. Jets fans are talking themselves into Aaron Rodgers. And we are obligated to very self-consciously play along right now because it's not a 0% probability. It might be a 1 or 2% probability that all the things fall into line for this to happen. And therefore, we have to kind of roll this because it's very clickable. And Jets fans right now are very, very stimulated, very overstimulated by this idea. And so there's a lot of business to be done by saying, well, let's look at it. And there's a little bit in my walkthrough. Let's look at what really would happen and what would go into this. The Jets are probably not getting Aaron Rodgers. What they got was a average offensive coordinator. I mean, Brian, do you have any sense of what Hackett brings to the table after what we saw this year?
He brings his system. It's very solid, unflexible system. I believe he's never ranked higher than 15th in offensive DVOA without Aaron Rodgers. So that is kind of a significant flag there. If they're not going to get Rodgers, I know there's been Jets fans in the Discord asking all about like the financial implications of a trade. Like, what can you do? Like, yeah, I mean, I don't think this makes sense unless you get Rodgers, and I don't think it makes sense even if you do get Rodgers because you are putting all your money on like a very short window. If you're the Jets, what you have right now is a bunch of young talent, and you need a quarterback.
Yes.
You shouldn't be trying to get like a 30-something-year-old veteran. You should be trying to find someone to build for the long term here. You're not trying to maximize a short term window. You've got all these young players. You want to build long here. I don't know who the quarterback he's looking for that's going to fit that system because he hasn't shown an ability to be flexible with it.
I mean, I still like the idea of keeping the Shanahan system and Mike LaFleur and bringing in Garoppolo, who knew how to use that, run that system, and then having Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore and a good offensive line and a good defense with Sauce Gardner. And, I didn't feel like you had to sell your whole team out for Aaron Rodgers. I felt like they were doing the Shanahan offensive system and they just needed a quarterback who could run it. And instead, they ditched the Shanahan offensive system and brought in Nathaniel Hackett.
Who is sort of like a cousin. It's sort of a systemic cousin because he's coming in from the LaFleur side of that and is now turning into like this tangled, tree there. Yeah. But they should be using their early round picks on refreshing their offensive line and doing things like that to sort of build the depth of the roster, not to be going out and throwing it at something. By the way, Bill Monty, don't worry. Very soon, Aaron Schatz will be bringing out his model of an ankle and will be showing you everything that we know about Patrick Mahomes' ankle. We're going to be using our medical knowledge to really give you inside information on what's going
on. We were going to do the 49ers and Eagles first, but let's answer this question. What Bill Monty wants to know, what do you think of the elephant in the room that Patrick Mahomes could be the first quarterback to lose 3 conference championships at home?
Who gives a
I mean no disrespect. Bill is, I think, referring to a big argument that was had on Twitter this morning between our former comrade Scott Kazmar and a number of other people when Scott brought up that Patrick Mahomes could become the first quarterback to lose 3 conference championships at home. And with no disrespect to our former comrade, that's a good thing. It's good that you lose 3 conference championships at home because it means you were in 3 conference championships at home.
Right. And I'll go in a second, Brian. I'm here in the homeland of Donovan McNabb, who lost NFC Championship after NFC Championship. Some of them on the road, but continually lost them. When you win the Super Bowl, which McNabb never did. But that's different. That changes the complexion of all of the other things. When you reach the Super Bowl again, which Mahomes did, that changes the complexion of these other things. It's a very, very strange, almost like something pulled from the media guide thing to really, latch onto.
Right. And I'm not a big believer in the guy who can never win the big game. I don't think there's anything wrong with Jim Kelly. I mean, Jim Kelly made it to the big game 4 times. It's better to make it to the big game than not make it. And you're talking about Patrick Mahomes being in 5 straight AFC Championship games, which, by the way, 2 of which he won, and then we don't know yet about this one. I don't think there's an elephant in the room at all.
Yeah, it's ridiculous to be considered. Oh, we're not doing well enough to reach the Final Four year after year after year after year after year.
Right. It's almost like people going after Brandon Beane. Why aren't you more like the Bengals? Look at the freaking record we put up here. He's 2-3 in championship games. He's 2-3 in championship games. That's a Hall of Famer.
Right.
Not somebody that you go.
He might be 2-3 if he loses this year. We don't even know yet, right? Because they haven't played this year's yet.
If you want to freak out about something, it's potentially going 0-4 against the Bengals. It's not good. It's not losing in the conference championship game because you keep getting there. Right. If you want to go panic about quarterback wins, that's the direction you want to panic in. Not about, we can't win the second biggest game of the year over and over and over again.
And I'll remind you that when one team owns another team, eventually, the other team gets theirs. Just look at the 2006 AFC Championship game when the Colts went down 21-3 to the Patriots, and the Patriots owned the Colts.
Yes.
And then the Colts came back and won the Super Bowl.
Right. And then later on, it was more of a balanced matchup between them because there were other matchups in which the Brady team won, other team matchups where the Manning team won. Generally speaking, the great teams will trade paint. And like an 0-3 or 0-4 will become, a 2-3 or a 2-4 because that's how it works. Because these teams are good.
All right, let's switch it up then. Well, let's do Bengals Chiefs first, and then we'll do 49ers Eagles. It's easy enough to switch our notes since there's only 2 games to talk about. So this is the later game, but we'll do it first. And the line on this one is interesting because it's gone back and forth. It went all the way to Bengals minus 2.5, and it is now back to Chiefs -1 because Mahomes looked good at a press conference and was a full participant in practice, even though we didn't get to actually see what full participant means. It's not like we have video of him running around and scrambling.
There's video of him jogging slightly. There is video of that. There's jogging.
So, that's the big problem with this game. The big problem with this game is we just don't know how much of Mahomes are we getting? Because as much as the Bengals own the Chiefs, they don't really own the Chiefs. Those are all close games. They beat the Chiefs this year 27-24. If Harrison Butker hits a 55-yard field goal, that's tied. Maybe the Chiefs win the game, right? Like it was not like 31-10.
Right.
It wasn't like what the Bengals did to the Bills last week.
Right.
The Bengals haven't done that to the Chiefs. It's all been close. So the Chiefs were the better team during the regular season. They had the best offense in the league. Offense is the most predictive thing. But we don't know how much Mahomes we're getting.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're all tired of talking about it already, but it's the storyline because if Mahomes can't move around and do crazy Mahomes things when the first read is taken away, that takes away so much of his value. That the highlights where you see like every drive where he like does a pirouette and throws the ball underhand 20 yards to Travis Kelce goes away a little bit if he can't move.
When you saw the second half of that game where he was limited last week, and you saw how much Henny-like play calling there was doing, like let's run another tunnel screen, let's get the ball into the flat quickly, all the things that they were doing to sort of hide the fact. I don't think they were trying to hide the fact, trying to protect him. I mean, the one thing you're going to see right away is they're going to have more maximum protection. There's going to be a 6th guy out there, whether it's a running back or Bell or something, and that automatically takes away some of the things that the Chiefs do best, which is just baffle you as to where that ball is going to go and make you defend the entire field.
Yeah, there were no deep passes. Once Mahomes got injured, he never threw from outside the pocket, and he never threw longer than 15 yards.
And he couldn't plant. If you watch, he couldn't plant. Yeah. I have a feeling he'll be able to plant okay. The miracle of cortisone and a nice little brace will get him in a position where he can, when he needs to, accurately get the ball somewhere down the field, but not maybe Mahomes accurately.
And I know we've mucked a little bit about like, oh, it was a press conference, but no, the fact that he wasn't in a walking boot is significant. The fact that he was able to be out there at all is significant.
Yep.
You know, there's a range of outcomes to high ankle sprains, and he might be on the lower end of it.
But for example, I looked at the stats that we have now from SIS, and the Chiefs are number 1 in DVOA without pressure and number 2 with pressure. Does that second number go down now that Mahomes cannot be mobile?
I would imagine it does. And I imagine the Bengals are going to blitz more, at least very early on, to try to test that ankle. You got to find out just what he can do. You know,
right. Historically, it's always don't blitz Mahomes, don't blitz Mahomes, don't blitz Mahomes. Yes. Now that Mahomes can't move around as well, do you blitz Mahomes?
At least for a drive or two until you can find out exactly how well he can move.
And the playoff strategy for the Bengals, I think Derek talked about it. Mike Hilton is coming off the edge a lot. He was coming off the edge a lot against Josh Allen. 8 or 9 or 10 corner or slot guy blitzes by Hilton. And that's just a simple thing that's really part of their system that you're probably going to see more of. You might have seen less of before.
Here's another problem. Having to leave in another guy to block means they probably aren't going to be able to spread the Bengals out. And here's an interesting thing about the Bengals defense this year. They sucked in dime personnel. If they had to go to 6 defensive backs, they had a 31% DVOA on defense. And against the Chiefs, specifically in week 13, they played dime on 7 plays and gave up 4 of 5 completions, including a fourth down conversion and a touchdown and a 29-yard pass on 3rd down. So you want to make the Bengals play dime, but if you have to leave in a second tight end to block or something like that, they're never going to do it.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm trying to think who the weak link is, and it's probably somebody I don't really know much about.
But, it's probably a third safety or something. I mean, or the fourth cornerback.
But Mike Kurtz is saying losing a bunch of conference championships your favorite in. That's the Andy Reid special. The Andy Reid special is getting to the conference championship game over and over again.
Right. And they're not really favored in this one. I mean, I can't remember exactly what year it is. I think this is the first time that both lines in the conference championship have been under 3 since 1997.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Something like that. Like 97? This is really close.
Yeah, on paper, this is a hell of a weekend.
Yeah, this is really, really close. By standard deviation of regular season DVOA, this is the closest Final Four since 1998.
It's only the 3rd time 4 of the top 5 DVOA teams have made it.
Wow, do we have the teams from 97, 98? I'm just curious. I'm going to find them.
98 was Atlanta, Minnesota, Denver, and the Jets.
And 97 was Denver, Pittsburgh, Green Bay, and San Francisco.
Well, those are some amazing teams. The Falcons team that year was amazing.
And was much better in the second half of the year than the first. They were really trending upwards.
Wow.
Yeah, I for the article this week, I looked at what was the maximum possible DVOA in the conference championships, and what do we actually get? And that Falcons team, it's not the top 4 teams, but they only 2% down off of, I think it was the Niners end up replacing there because they beat them in the divisional round. Just fantastic matchups then. A little bit lower this year because we had the Bills so much higher than the Bengals, but still having 4 of the top 5 teams there is great.
Right. Of course, the Bengals, the flip side of this is we still have the offensive line injuries to worry about. Now, it looked fine against the Bills, but the Bills looked like they were on ice skates for the first time in their lives, despite being the Buffalo Bills. And I don't know if we got a true test of that. Because if you watch the tape, the slowness of the Bills on defense was remarkable. I was watching it live, wrong cleats? What's going on? And we may still see, the absence of Jonah Williams, the absence of Lel Collins against a Spagnuolo defense.
Yeah, I mean, we know Spagnuolo likes to blitz. And the Chiefs' defense is 8th in DVOA with a blitz, 24th without a blitz. Burrow actually is better without a blitz than with a blitz. The yards per play are basically the same, but if you send just 4 pass rushers, Burrow is a little bit more consistent. His success rate is higher, even though the yards per play are the same either way.
Right.
But the Chiefs' pass rush is not spectacular. I mean, Karlaftis is nice, and Frank Clark it's been called overrated at this point so many times. He's probably underrated. And Chris Jones is like a god, but Chris Jones is going up against the healthy, right? He's going up against the healthy members of the Bengals offensive line.
More or less, yes. Oh, well, let's go to the next game. It's like, we don't know. Everybody's hurt.
Yeah. Well, no, we're bringing up a lot of interesting splits, and we can talk about how Trent McDuffie has been really good, and Jalen Watson not so good, and L'Jarius Sneed somewhere in between, and it all comes down to the idea. I think that this is a really close game between two really good teams. Mike Kurtz is correct. It is kind of incredible that the Chiefs got back here after losing a lot of what made them special in Tyreek Hill. What they didn't lose was Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce.
And Chris Jones.
I'm talking about on offense.
On offense, true. Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Right. And they did a good job. I mean, you don't replace Tyreek Hill, and I don't think MVS really did that much this year, but you take him and you take Juju Smith-Schuster and everything, and you create this opportunity where you become very difficult to, and Jerick McKinnon, I think I would add to that too, very difficult to predict, very difficult to scheme against.
Yeah, although, I mean, I pointed this out on Twitter earlier this week, and I think on the show that we did on Monday, if you look at DVOA, so you adjust for the quality of the offenses. So relatively speaking, compared to the rest of the league, Cincinnati does better against top quarterbacks than they do against run-of-the-mill quarterbacks. It's kind of weird. Like, they have a better record against the top quarterbacks than most teams do. And not necessarily, like, they let guys like Jacoby Brissett slice and dice them. And then they go and they stop Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen.
It's the defensive counterpoint to the argument that the Chiefs are always just dogging it in the regular season and turn it on. So I guess Bengals are doing that against the bad quarterbacks and waiting for all the good plays.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about the Bengals defense is people talk about them like a top 5 unit, but numerically they're not a top 5 unit.
Right.
But mainly the reason they're not a top 5 unit is because of things like Jacoby Brissett slicing and dicing them.
Right.
But they have had some really good games against some of these top quarterbacks like Herbert, like Mahomes, like Josh Allen, and Aaron Rodgers, and so forth.
Yeah, I wonder if the key part of it is maybe being a little more conservative against them, maybe running the ball against them, that they're doing very well against teams that try to YOLO. Bills last week, a prime example, and that's how they beat these teams because they put themselves in a position to beat themselves. Just a hypothesis.
Yeah. I think we also know the Bengals are going to run. The Chiefs' run defense is not as bad as it's been in past years, right. But the Bengals' run offense is very efficient, even though they don't get a lot of long highlight runs. They get a lot of steady gains with Mixon and Perrine. So I think they'll have some success running the ball.
Right.
Do you feel any better, says Mike Kurtz, about Zach Taylor running the ship, or is it just that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins make most coaches look good?
Feel better than I felt about him 2 years ago, at the very least. There was a lot of talk about him, potentially coaching for his job the Super Bowl. It's so hard to evaluate coaches, but the fact that if you keep getting here, it's not just because you have talent. If you keep getting it, you're finding ways to use it. There are plenty of teams with talented receivers out there who are sitting at home right now.
I have to admit that if I ranked all the head coaches in the league based on my impression of them, not only strategically and analytically, but also when it came to, the locker room management and, coaching up your players, I feel like I would put Zach Taylor 16th. I just don't feel like he's bad or good. He's just.
You look at the breadth of the season, and he's had to make multiple adjustments along the way to the bad offensive line early, bad offensive line late, losing Chase for several weeks. The team has been pretty versatile along the way. And I'll also say the early part of his career was defined. He had some assistant coaches who were in there who I think he made mistakes on his early hires and brought in some guys who were almost like saboteur level bad people to bring in when you're a new coach. And I think you don't keep getting here if the culture and the management of the locker room isn't pretty darn good,
that's the positive. That's what he does well, right? That is the culture and the management of the locker room. I think that's what he does really well. But I feel like a lot of the adaptability is on the coordinators more than it's on him.
Right.
And I do think he's the worst coach still going today. He's going this weekend. I think that Andy Reid versus Zach Taylor is one of the reasons I'm kind of leaning towards the Chiefs, because yes, they're gonna have to adjust the game plan for Mahomes hurt, but Andy Reid's really good at doing that. Andy Reid has a long history of very successful game plans with quarterbacks of all ability, shall we say?
AJ Feely.
Yeah.
Mahomes probably better than AJ Feely, even on
Chad Henne.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, look at how Chad Henne has played both last year. Was it last year? No, 2 years ago against
2 years
Cleveland.
ago in the playoffs. Yeah, against the Browns.
And this year, last week against the Jaguars, Chad Henne has played good. Kevin Cobb, Mike Curtis. Yeah, Kevin Cobb, absolutely.
All the depths.
It's going to be cold. I will also say it's going to be 30 degrees colder in Kansas City than it will be in Philadelphia.
Interesting. It's going to be mild here. It's going to be
mild. It's going to be very mild in Philadelphia. It's going to be cold. It's going to be in the 20s in Kansas City.
Yeah, the Bengals just won in the snow in Buffalo. It's hard to that's an advantage. Yeah, they're a cold weather city, more or less, kind of, sort of, too.
So I don't know. I mean, I think if you put a gun to my head and make me pick, I'm going to take the Bengals.
Okay.
Because I'm just scared of the injury.
Can I do my props?
Yeah, let's hit some props, and then I'll get your guys' final picks.
These props come from DraftKings. They are just sort of the defaults. Kind of interesting, though. I thought I'd get your opinions on it. Travis Kelce, 8+ receptions. Jerick McKinnon, 1+ one or more offensive touchdowns, plus 330. So Kelce, 8+ receptions, and McKinnon with a touchdown, plus 330.
Here's why I don't like it.
Okay.
Cincinnati was 5th against tight ends this year by DVOA.
That's right.
And they kept Kelce to, I think, only 4 catches in the Week 13 game.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly what I was going to bring up. Like, 8 is a lot. That's a lot of stuff to ask against a team that's been.
I mean, last week Kelce had 137 catches, and that was just in the first half.
But the Jaguars also were not aware that tight end was a position that existed before that game, so it's a slightly different situation.
All right, we're going to steer clear of that prop. We'll go with the other one. Joe Burrow, 275+ passing yards. Joe Mixon, 60+ rushing yards, plus 310.
That's the Bengals ass kicking prop.
More, but 60+.
I feel like if it's a shootout, Burrow will hit that, but Mixon may not. Whereas if the Bengals just kick ass, they're both hitting those numbers.
They're definitely both hitting. I can see in a shootout that getting the 61 is not like unheard of.
Not terribly hard.
Yeah.
I like that one better than the Kelce one.
Yep. If Mixon had a slightly higher explosive play rate, I think I'd be all over that. But yeah, I mean, a lot of those plays are, like a lot of his good plays are, here's 8 yards, here's 9 yards. It's not like, here's the 40-yard run that gets you 2/3 of the way there.
Right.
Yes.
I think
he doesn't do the explosive plays.
Yeah. I think I still like it because there is that chance of the shootout and all the numbers just going skyrocketing. That's always in play in any kind of Chiefs game. I think I'd certainly rather take that than the Chiefs one.
Okay. I do have some high lows, but we'll hit them after the second game.
So let me ask you, guys, if you had to put money on it, Chiefs or Bengals? And let's assume that the line is pick 'em, because at this point it's gone back and forth so much that by the end that may be what it is.
Yeah, the more the line was creeping towards Cincinnati, the more I was liking taking Kansas City and the points. Because if you're going to give me the Chiefs and the points, I don't care how many ankles Patrick Mahomes has. I will take the points in the Kansas City Chiefs. It is a really tough call because we just don't know. We just don't know how healthy Patrick Mahomes is. I am leaning towards the Chiefs either way. I think with a week to prepare and plan for a limited Mahomes, Andy Reid is going to put together something that is going to work. But it's just so many variables in this one. This one's very, very tough to call.
Yeah, I'm just going to lean towards the Chiefs because they're the Chiefs. And I think the Mahomes we saw in the second half that gave me the jitters, he's not going to be that unhealthy. He will not be that wobbly, and that he will be sufficient. Let's put it that way. So I'm going to lean towards the Chiefs.
All right. Don't forget, again, if you're watching us live, Twitter or YouTube, Twitch or YouTube or Twitter, wherever you're watching us live, please go ahead and ask us some questions. We would love to hear from you. Let's talk about the NFC Conference Championship. This one is not a rematch from last year. 49ers are back, along with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I am sitting here with an Eagles fan and a 49ers fan. So I'll drop in some stats, but you two can have it out over who's going to win this game.
Bryan shows up with his background ready to put all kinds of championship 49ers stuff up. Like he has already cleared the trophy case.
It's ready to go. It's ready to go, just in case. Now, I'd say that of all the teams the Niners can be playing in this NFC Championship game, I'm not happy it's the Eagles. I'd rather play. This is the one we all wanted, though. Like we were. This is the matchup everyone was.
These are the two best teams in the NFC this year. I can't think of a metric that doesn't have this as the two best teams in the NFC.
Yeah, Eagles the best team over the first half of the year by pretty much any amount of use. We have the Niners as the best team over the second half of the league. It's great. This is fantastic. And it's really strength against strength for the most part.
Yeah.
It's the Eagles are the top run offense. The Niners are the second best run defense. 49ers are the Eagles pass rush. That is what worries me. Because when I think of Niners-Eagles games historically, all I think about are Niners quarterbacks being driven into the turf. And sometimes they get up and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
The Cowboys had a higher pressure rate than the Eagles did last year. But the Eagles did a better job of converting that pressure rate into sacks, into quarterback hits, into knockdowns. Because the Cowboys got plenty of pressure on Brock Purdy throughout last week's game, but they only sacked him twice, and they didn't really force that many. There was one throw that was kind of up for grabs that Ayuk had to knock down, but he mostly withstood the pressure. And then when they didn't get pressure, he sliced and diced them. The Eagles are going to be able to take that pressure and turn it into knockdowns more, and I think really disrupt Purdy more than the Cowboys were able to do.
Yeah.
I'm really the matchup of Hassan Reddick versus Mike McGlinchey, I think, is going to be huge over there on the right side, because you win that matchup, you force Purdy to roll to his left, which he wants to do anyway, and he's going to be shooting.
It's unbelievable how much he wants to go to his left, and he wants to twirl around to get there. Like Purdy wants to twirl around to his left on every play.
That's the 7th round rookiness of Purdy. It doesn't look like, and most of the times he does not look like a rookie. Okay. But when there's pressure, it's like, I'm going this way. I'm always like, the field is tilted in this direction, or it's electric football and he's heading towards the little agitator in the corner. That's it. Now, that's the thing the Eagles can bring from the other side. You're going to bring Reddick on McGlinchey. The Eagles bring pass rushers from the other side of the field there. And it's like, well, Trent Williams is one man. You can get around them, etc. And that could be an advantage for the Eagles.
Yeah. The Eagles are a much more straightforward pressure system, I think, than the Cowboys generally bring. And so what the Cowboys try to do is say, okay, you're a 7th round rookie. We're gonna give you all these different pre-snap reads. We're gonna see what you can see and what you can identify. And he passed that test to a certain extent. The Eagles like, we have 8 pass rushers. We're just gonna rotate them in and send them at you all day long. And we'll see if you can just withstand sheer numbers coming at you. Right. It might well work. It is definitely. I don't see the Eagles winning if they don't manage to get that kind of pressure, but it's going to be a long, long day for the offensive line trying to hold on them back.
If they don't get that kind of pressure, you can usually work the short middle of the field against the Eagles defense. It's very much sort of a shell that works outside in. 49ers offense works inside out the way offenses did for the first 75 years of history. And that's a place where if the Eagles, I got to not say we, if the Eagles are getting pressure, the Eagles are not getting pressure, then the 49ers, they play in the 49ers game. I'll give you something real quick, because a lot of this comes down to, well, who will get the lead? I'm always saying make Purdy play from behind. It's rare that he has to play from behind. The Eagles outscored opponents in the second quarter 207-91.
Pretty good.
In the regular season. 207-91 in the second quarter. Saw some of that last week against the Giants. The 49ers, talk about strength on strength, 159-73.
Pretty good.
Right. So it's like they're going to be jockeying to be in position to say, the second half, we're going to play our game.
There is so much strength against strength, because think about the 49ers defensive line against the Eagles offensive line. There's so much strength against strength. Absolutely.
Lane Johnson looked good against the Giants. The Giants do not have the same kind of pass rush that the 49ers have. But, that's what I was worried about the Eagles. Because the December Eagles are not a Super Bowl championship team with Minshew in there and all the injuries and stuff like that. That's what I wanted to see against the Giants. I wanted to see them look like they did in November and October. And they did for the most part. It was not exactly the world's toughest challenge, but they destroyed the Giants. They did exactly what you're supposed to do against that kind of challenge.
Yeah. Here's a crazy split that, for example, the Eagles' pass defense, weeks 1 to 8, number 1 in the league. Weeks 9 to 16, 16th. Yeah. Then weeks 17 to 20, number 2. So they had a little bit of a slump, but the last 3 games, that pass defense has been killer.
Losing Avonte Maddox for a little bit was part of it. Losing C.J. Gardner-Johnson for a while.
Losing C.J. Gardner-Johnson for a while was a big part of it.
Lost it for a little bit, and the Eagles were not getting takeaways as much in the second half of the season, and I think that was a contributing factor to it as well.
One thing Doug Farrar pointed this out earlier today. Niners use motion more than pretty much anyone else in the league. Pre-snap motion. The Eagles are the second best in EPA per play against pass plays with motion, but they're the second worst against run plays with motion. So that's something, because the Eagles do sometimes have a chance to over pursue on these kind of things, and I think that's going to be very interesting to see how the Niners use play action and counters and all this motion to get McCaffrey going, to get Elijah Mitchell going against the brunt of the pass rush. Because if they can get that run game going early, that's going to slow down those pass rushes just a bit, and that's going to open things up. That is what I'm really interested to see. Because matching up the Niners offense is hard. They've got guys who can line up anywhere at any time. I'm very interested to see how the Eagles decide to account for a running back who can play wide receiver, a wide receiver who can play running back, everyone going all over the place.
Right.
It's just so hard.
It's so hard. I was looking at it like, man, who would I want to cover Debo and McCaffrey? I'd want Fred Warner. That's darn. Yeah, I can't get him. So, that's the trouble with the 49ers is that unique matchup. I don't think the Eagles necessarily say, we have a solution for this. You know, the solution for Debo. Right. The solution is pass rush, and force them into a bad situation.
Yeah, this is, again, a really close game. But I feel like, look, no single game is a test for any statistical theory, right? You have to look at things over a long period of time in a lot of games. Mm-hmm. But this game is a really interesting test. One piece of anecdotal evidence for the idea of which is more important, how good a team is for the whole year or how good a team is over the last couple of months. Because if the answer is for the whole year, these teams are very equal. And if the answer is for the last couple months, the 49ers are better.
I feel that's weird, though, because you've got a couple of injured quarterback games late.
If you take out the injured quarterback game, even if you take out the Minshew game.
Right.
Here's interesting. The passing numbers for the Eagles are no different in the 2 Minshew games because Minshew was really good in the first one and then bad in the second one, and it evens out. Their running numbers were not as good.
Right.
Without Hurts to take the attention of the defense, they did not run anywhere near as well when Minshew was there.
And they decided to abandon the run in one of the games in the locker room. They left it in there. That hurt as well. And the 49ers, again, when you do longitudinal with the 49ers, you have 3 different quarterbacks. You have McCaffrey coming in mid-year. You've got a Debo gap in there, et cetera. So it's almost like, of course, there's no perfect, 17 games, everybody was healthy type team. But it's almost like there's like 3 epochs or 4 epochs for the 49ers.
But the defense got better over the course of the season. Mm-hmm. And the offense, especially once McCaffrey shows up, right, gets better over the course of the season. They're on this ridiculous winning streak. They're number 1 in weighted DVOA. They're a really good argument for, week 1 especially. Yes. Let's take that out entirely in a monsoon against the Chicago Bears with Trey Lance at quarterback.
Right.
It's interesting. If they win, it's a little bit of a data point in favor of weighted DVOA over full season. And if the Eagles win, it's a little bit of a data point in favor of, full season maybe matters more. But it's just one data point. That's the thing. You don't decide anything on one data point.
Right. For example, let's get a 7th round rookie and start him. Would not be the data point you want to go with.
But that's not the model going forward. But I'm lost.
Oh, wait. Just wait until
He's a Rookie of the Year finalist.
Well, he should be. I mean, there's a difference between evaluating what the future is and what the accomplishments were this year.
Even though we only played 7 games?
The starting quarterback for a team that's in the NFC Championship game for those 7 games.
I suspect that this was a weird year for Rookie of the Year on offense because there wasn't there isn't a quarterback that's out there. There's a wide spread of receivers and running backs. Yeah. I suspect a lot of the battles this year went, the running back I like number 1, the wide receiver I like number 2, and I'll put Purdy number 3 because he was the most valuable quarterback. And if enough of those running back and wide receiver votes get spread out, right, Purdy's up there with like the second or third most votes. Just because
Purdy could win Rookie of the Year without winning any first place votes.
Yes. I'm really interested to see how that breakdown goes.
Obviously, Chris Olave is the best receiver. Obviously, Garrett Wilson's the best receiver. Obviously, Kenneth Walker was the best running back. Obviously, Bernard Pierce was the best running back. Right. Nobody was obvious, so that's how that's going to go. It's not like Sauce. It's not like defense, which I think.
Right. No, it's not like defense where I'm sure Sauce won probably unanimously.
Yes. Just clear the trophy case now, young man.
So let's do props first, and then let's compare.
Okay. Jalen Hurts 50-plus rushing yards, and Dallas Goedert a receiving touchdown, plus 450. You like it? I don't love it. I wanted to put it out there, but what do you think?
I like it quite a bit. I know the Niners have had better numbers against rushing quarterbacks this year than they have in the past. Right. But they also avoided Kyler Murray twice, and they avoided Russell Wilson in offense he knows how to run. Justin Fields ran all over them. They had trouble with Marcus Mariota. I thought those were the backups. And Hurts in their game in 2021 ran for 8 yards a carry against the Niners. So this was, not good yet, Jalen. This was still like developing Jalen Hurts.
Okay.
Because what you're asking there for is like, will a tight end catch a touchdown? And yeah, the Niners let up 1 or 2 plays like that a game. I like it. I'd take that one.
Okay. Aaron, any thoughts?
I like the plus 450.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not playing. I don't play a lot this time of year in terms of gambling, but it does have its appeal. There's 2 scenarios there. One is that the 49ers dominate and Hurts winds up getting 50 yards because he's running for his life, and the Eagles dominate, and he's part of that. The middle ground
is not running for his life. It's that they're designed runs that he's
designed runs. Exactly. Let me go with another one here. This is the Niners side. This one I like. McCaffrey 75+ rushing yards against the Eagles run defense. Debo 50+ receiving yards. 50+ receiving yards. So McCaffrey 75 on the ground, Debo 50 through the air, but at a low plus 280.
I'm a little worried about that one because the Niners have actually been better running the ball with Elijah Mitchell. There's been games this year where they've rested Mitchell for most of the first half and brought him out in the second half to do all the pounding and running, when you're just trying to wear another team down. That is something that I could very easily see happening, where McCaffrey gets those yards with their receiving yards. He doesn't necessarily get them all on the ground.
Yeah, I'm with him. Elijah Mitchell. They're going to use a lot of Elijah Mitchell.
That's the prop that is begging for the shovel pass. That's the 65-yard
exactly
McCaffrey run. It's begging for that. I don't know. At 75, I don't hate it. I don't despise it because it was up at 85, 95 because he can get that on a couple of splash 15-yard gashes.
I had to pick a favorite over-under for ESPN column, and I wanted to pick Elijah Mitchell, but Elijah Mitchell's over-under wasn't posted yet on Caesar, so I couldn't do it.
Ooh, let me see if I can pull it up real quick here. Elijah Mitchell.
Because that's the thing. Adding McCaffrey really hasn't helped the Niners' run game by DVOA anyway. He's below Mitchell. He's below Hasty. But it's a passing game that all of a sudden that makes him maybe worth 3 mid-round picks. The matchup problems that he brings.
Yeah, it is not posted for Elijah Mitchell. I think the house is like, let's wait on this a little bit. Let's not.
So picking the game, Eagles minus 2.5.
I think this is too close to lay any points. I think whoever you think is going to win, I don't like the idea of laying any points on this one, so I'll take the Niners plus 2.5.
Taking the Eagles, rolling with the idea that 7th-round rookie all the way to the Super Bowl, all these rolls of the dice where it hasn't haunted them in any way, where the bouncing ball interception didn't bounce into somebody's hands, etc. Based on that evenness of the game, based on what you see around me here, going with the Eagles, going with getting on a flight in Philadelphia and having all of my colleagues and the gang from Philly Voice and everybody, and Kemsky and Brandon Lee and everybody on the flight with me, going with the Eagles.
I'm in a no-lose spot here because if the Eagles win this game, my preseason Super Bowl pick was half correct. And if the 49ers win this game, it really shows that weighted DVOA is a good predictor.
Yes.
I'm going to go with the Niners. I just feel like once you take out, especially not just over the last 12 weeks, but just take out week one. Just take out week one. They've been so good on both sides of the ball, so good at everything, that they just, especially if I get to take +2.5, like I'm gonna, even though that's not +3, like it'd be better if it was +3. But I think, the idea that this game could end up close, I'm going to go with 49ers +2.5.
Nice. Great games. Let me do a couple high-lows. See what you guys think. Highest scoring team of the weekend. Here are your odds. Bengals at +210. Eagles at +230. Chiefs at +310. 49ers at +400.
I mean, I think the answer is the Chiefs, because if Mahomes' ankle is okay, the Chiefs were the number one offense in the league this year.
Yeah, that's what I think.
+400 is nice for the 49ers because, if we're picking them to win, at +400 odds, because if Mahomes' ankle isn't okay, maybe that might slow that one down. 400 is a nice thing. I think I still like the Chiefs.
Right. One thing about taking the 49ers in for a highest scoring is they will kick field goals late leading.
Yep.
Yes, Shanahan is not aggressive.
Yeah, the Eagles do the same thing, by the way, in the second half. If for some reason they roll, they slow down in the second half. So neither of them seem great. I'd go with one of the AFC teams. I'm thinking here's lowest scoring teams. Lowest scoring team this weekend: Niners at +190, Chiefs at +250, Eagles at +350, Bengals at +380. I'll tell you right now, I'm looking at the Bengals in the offensive line collapses scenario, which has a what percent chance? Medium percent, low percent, whatever. +380 with that number. I'm kind of looking at the Bengals on that one.
Yeah, you can imagine the bottom falling out if Burrow is grounded into the Arrowhead turf.
Yes, and that's the one where I can say the bottom fall. I guess Mahomes is limping away. But the bottom fall scenario for the Bengals is the one I can see the most, even though I'm not necessarily anticipating.
Right. The bottom fall scenario for the Chiefs is Mahomes limps around, and it's so bad that Chad Henne has to come in.
Right, and then it becomes a lower scoring game, but it's not by that much, I suppose. I don't know.
I mean, the Alex Smith Chiefs didn't score that few amount of points, so I mean, I think even the worst case scenario, Andy Reid's gonna dial up some ways to get some points in there.
Right.
I think I would go with Eagles +350 just because of the quality of the 49ers defense.
Yeah. A lot of Eagles hate.
Not a lot of Eagles hate. It's the +350 that I like. Not the
a lot of +350 love.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Are we good?
All right. Yeah, I think so. I'm just excited. I'm excited. These are going to be great games. And we have a great Super Bowl no matter which of these two teams make it. It's going to be a really close. The look-ahead lines for the Super Bowl, I saw one place that had a 1.5-point line if it's Chiefs and 49ers. Otherwise, the look-ahead lines are all either pick 'em or 1.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
There
are no game catchers. Like last year, the Bengals were an average team that got hot. Everyone here deserves to be here, and that's rare, and that's something we should really enjoy.
Real quick, the girl who was checking me out at Wawa, not checking me out, but like checking out my groceries, said that she heard that the Super Bowl's rigged because there was a supermarket someplace and they only ordered the balloons for the 49ers and Bengals. Did anyone else hear this?
This is nothing I've heard about.
No,
this.
I have not heard of that.
You have not heard this. I don't put a lot of stock into it, but like one of my theories is, well, you probably have red and white balloons available, what with them being common colors and Valentine's Day, but you might not necessarily have like orange and black balloons. The NFL scripted, thank you, Robert, we got it. And they want the Bengals to win because of that giant Cincinnati market.
I don't know. They have green and black balloons just around that they don't need to order them.
I think
Well,
it's
you know,
a green
obviously,
silver.
you're bringing the Niners and Bengals in, so you get all that 80s nostalgia that's going through. That's the idea.
Maybe part of it is they already have green balloons. There's your 80s nostalgia. They already have green balloons left over from St. Patrick's Day. So all they need is if they need the Bengals black and orange balloons, and that takes care of the Eagles because then they have green and black.
And that's it. And like that theory actually makes less sense than the NFL scripted. But the theory I'm going with is that the lady at the Wawa cash register was banana pants, but the shades are amazing. Kind of a Terminator thing, kind of a risky business era Tom Cruise thing. Definitely an 80s vibe though.
The lost member of Huey Lewis in the News, I believe, is what we got going on over here.
Yeah, like the saxophone player. I think the saxophone player was definitely a shades guy.
One of the networks, I can't remember if it was ESPN, did a graphic last week during one of the games that was a throwback to a Huey Lewis in the News video where everybody was buried in the sand except their heads.
Yeah,
I don't remember what the graphic had something to do with the Jaguars. And it was like, who remembers that video other than old people like me? Like, what the hell?
Well, hip to be square. Didn't Joe Montana sing on that?
Montana and Dwight Clark and a couple other 49ers are the back of. I think singing is a little bit of a stretch of what you're describing, what they're doing on that track. But yes, they are the background vocals for that.
You're there and everywhere.
Love the 80s. 2 words for you. Ram it.
Oh, God.
All right. I want to thank our sponsors at Underdog Fantasy. It is baseball best ball draft time at Underdog Fantasy, but also you can play pick'em games with the conference championships and pick a player's chances to go higher or lower than their projected stat lines, even in states where traditional prop betting is not currently available. Elijah Mitchell, go higher. Underdog is the fastest growing fantasy site around. Join the fun. UnderdogFantasy.com. or download Underdog in the App Store. And don't forget to please use promo code OUTSIDERS to let them know we sent you and double your first deposit up to $100. All right. Brian and I need to go finish writing now. And Mike has to finish getting ready for Senior Bowl week.
Senior Bowl, been grinding film all morning. Going to be grinding film all afternoon and all day tomorrow. And folks, you'll see us next
week's schedule is Monday. It's going to be me and Brian and Cale Clinton to review the conference championships and do a first Super Bowl preview. Then Cale and Jackson with the news show on Wednesday. And then me and you on Friday talking more Super Bowl and talking about your week at the Senior Bowl and who really showed.
There'll be coach hirings then.
There'll be coach hiring news to discuss and all kinds of stuff.
And folks, you'll find me on Twitter tweeting like a lunatic about all the things going on down in Mobile, including all the barbecue I eat.
Yes. So don't forget to follow us all on Twitter. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the show. Get on the Football Outsiders Discord. This is going to be a really great weekend of football. I hope everybody enjoys it. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern.